Welcome to the 2009 Fusion Podcast, presented to you by the Oregon Ministry Network. Fusion, a conference for next-generation ministry leaders, took place November 12th through 14th at the Kaiser Renaissance Inn and Conference Center. The following workshop, entitled Youth Ministries Meet and Greet, was led by Garland Owensby.
Well, what do you want to talk about? What questions do you have? Otherwise, I'm just going to tell jokes the whole time. So. If you don't have questions, I have questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Last night when you spoke, I don't know, it kind of hit me hard because that's my testimony basically, as I grew up in the church and was a result of like a lot of rules.
Mm-hmm.
And swore I would never go into ministry because of it, because I didn't want to do that to anyone else. And now I'm in ministry, and I've only been in ministry for a couple months. Me and my husband have. How, especially like, I'm at a church that is very traditional on trying to become more contemporary, and our pastor's like slow but surely trying to bring the people there, but not too fast because then you won't have any people.
Right.
So how do you do that though? Like, as a youth pastor, almost like this situation your friend was in.
Yeah.
So maintaining like respect and honor, but not making it about the rules. How do you do that?
Number one, institutions move slowly.
Yeah.
You know, which we always look and we go, that's bad. No, it's in some ways it's good. I mean, you don't want icebergs moving quickly. You don't want your continent moving quickly. You have to have some stability, and that's what institutions give us, whether they're banks or schools or. I mean, you wouldn't like it if your bank changed names and policies every week. And so there is something eternal that happens with the church where we're stuck between two things of trying to minister to our culture in a way that is relevant, but in a way that's eternal. You know, so having some eternal values. Pentecostals are really good at experiencing Jesus and not really reading about him. And I think that's one of our keys is, I'm teaching a course now called Contemporary Issues in Youth Culture. And, okay, I'm realizing I can't have this mint in while I'm talking, so excuse me. Talk amongst yourselves. And so one of the things that we're trying to figure out is, are we preaching against it because we don't like it, or are we preaching against it because it's not biblical? And excuse me if I get political here for a little while. Can I talk politics? Now, I'm from Texas, so what I'm about to say in Texas will get me shot and jobless, okay? I'm not sure which will come first, you know. I have students arguing, and they're like, Obama's trying to turn us into socialists. Socialist healthcare. And I said, who told you that the government providing for healthcare is wrong? I said, because all of a sudden, most of you guys were raised under socialist police, socialist military, socialist fire, socialist roads, socialist public education. Who told you that socialist healthcare is bad? Now, I'm not endorsing, I'm not preaching for or against what Barack Obama is doing. I'm preaching against mindless goose-stepping to one political party because we believe they're the Christian party. So, does that make sense, guys? I'm not anti-Republican, anti-Democrat. It's just you have to take a step back and say, why are we against this? Are we against this because it's biblical, or are we against this because it's cultural? Because there are bigger forces in any one of us telling us it's wrong. We go back, you know, high heels were invented for men. Right? High heels were invented in France in the 16th century for men to wear. But if I wore high heels, you'd say there's something wrong with me. Why? Because in this case, fashion changes. Fashion continually changes. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think the big thing is, this is why I started up my computer, so I could go to quotes and stuff. So this course, I'm trying to teach them how do you develop a biblical worldview in your students? Something that constantly says, I'm not going to look through the lenses, or I'm going to do my best not to look through the lenses of a conservative, or through the lenses of a liberal, or through the lenses of a white male, or through the lenses of an African American male. Can I look through the lenses of Jesus Christ? Okay? And if I can look through the lenses of Jesus Christ, all of a sudden I realize ball caps don't matter. Okay? That's not the issue. Tattoos really aren't the issue. Earrings really aren't the issue. Do I like gauges in ears? No, I just don't find them appealing. But I've realized that's a personal taste, not a biblical mandate. So I think the question becomes discipleship oriented. Let me read you a quote. I got to get to it, but. I'm sorry, I just saw a picture of Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. This is a great presentation. You'd enjoy this. Oh, come on. Don't you ever one of those moments you're like, where is it? Where is it? What am I looking for? I don't think it's down there. Am I answering your question?
No, you're definitely helping a lot more than...
Oh, found it. Okay, this guy, he's a critic for the Dallas Morning News. And this is what he said: "I'm not defending trash or a lack of guidelines, hardly. My daughter's heard no many times, but the mass media, I suspect, aren't going away. We have to engage with them, and a bitter retreat works about as well as a hopeless surrender. So I think the best thing we can do for our kids is to turn them into critics, brave ones. Give them the smarts and the backbone that will let them judge for themselves, because at some point they're going to have to." Okay? And I think that's what we're talking about is, are we telling our kids, no ball caps in church, no tattoos, don't drink?
Yeah.
Can I really mess with you? And I know I'm on the West Coast. What are you going to do? What's going to be your biblical response to why your students can't smoke the marijuana that they can go down to Walmart and buy over the counter? Right? Because at this point, our argument has been, it's against the law. Well, alcohol was against the law in the 1920s, but now it's not against the law. So now we've had to change our biblical approach to figure out why alcohol isn't, or is. So where's the verse that says you can smoke a little bit as long as you don't get high? How much buzz is enough buzz? You see what? Do we? Because I really believe legalization of marijuana is not if, it's when in the United States. Because who would have thought 20 years ago gay marriage wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when? I know my parents in the 1950s weren't thinking one day homosexuals were going to marry. We've got our first president that admits to inhaling. Right? Right? And once again, this is not an anti-Obama thing. It's boy, this generation's changed. This is what I'm saying. The students you're working with one day are going to grow up and become president. That's their generation. Just like the baby boomers saw Bill Clinton, right? The millennials, the Gen X, we're seeing Barack Obama. He has our values. The things we embrace, the teenagers, that's his value. So what are they embracing? We are going to one day have a president that has piercings and has tattoos. I don't think it's a matter of if. I think it's a matter of when. So, discipleship. Worldview. What's primary? Tradition or Scripture? Tradition is not bad. But when tradition supersedes Scripture, we're Pharisees. Yeah. When Scripture supersedes tradition, we're biblical. Yeah. Wes,
with what you're saying is walking a fine line with teenagers, even also in our views with the older generation of what's that, how do you keep them to where it's not crossing a line into rebellion out of spite with the older generation that's probably won't budge much.
Yeah.
There's how do you...
That's what Paul was dealing with the Corinthian church. Is, hey, this person, they feel like they can't eat meat. This person feels like they can eat meat. So what do? Well, you don't have a ham sandwich in front of them. if the scripture that Darren and I are going to talk about is Paul's telling the Philippians, consider other people better than yourselves. And if I'm considering you better than myself, that here's an example. When I was youth pastor, I didn't own any secular music. None. I mean, you came to my house, it was all Christian CDs. All my movies were PG-13. Okay? This is being recorded. Okay. Come to my house now, I have got CDs that are not on a Christian label. But I'm working with college students who discern their world differently than a young or mid-adolescent does. So I don't have a problem with a student coming in and saying, hey, look, you have this artist. Yeah, let's talk about this. You know, does that make sense? So I think the thing is, do I broadcast in my classes, hey, I own this CD? No, because there are some people that, for them, that is an issue of whether they can eat or not eat. And if we can teach our students the idea of humility and considering one another, and if it makes an older person happy for them to take out their earrings when they come to church, okay, go ahead. That's no big deal. It's just earrings. They're just earrings. One more story. I'm sorry, I'm monopolizing time. When I was in college, I had really long hair. So God has a sense of humor. My hair was like down to here. I had really nice long hair. And I auditioned for a traveling drama team that represented Southeastern College. So I was going to be traveling to Alabama and South Carolina and Tennessee and Georgia. A Yankee with really long hair. And as I was auditioning, the director, she said, if I asked you to cut your hair, would you? And I said, yeah, it's just hair. She said, great, I'll never ask you to cut your hair. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Because the hair wasn't an issue of Bible or not Bible. She said, is the hair connected to the heart? Is there an attitude? And I looked and I just said, it's just hair. Okay, it'll grow back, you know? And so if a student values their earring and values being right and their liberty more than they value the community, then this isn't about earrings at all. Okay, it could be about stars or no stars on our bellies. You know? Does that make sense? Yeah. Anything else? You want to follow it up? Any other?
Yeah, it's helpful a lot of ways. I think for me, my husband's just trying to figure it out. You know, I see what it looks like, a lot of prayer, a lot of God, if you were a youth pastor, what would it look like?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, love them.
Yeah.
Love them. Give them a place. Yeah.
Kind of along the same lines, since there's a lot of newer youth pastors and kids pastors who are trying to get out of, the traditional mindset. What would you say advice, like if they're with a senior pastor who is stuck in very traditional mindset?
How do you bridge that gap between your traditional congregation that's saying your teenagers will and should be this, versus the teenager who's saying, this is who I am? Yeah.
The sad thing is, all those pastors that are stuck in their traditions, 30 years ago, they swore they would never be that way. And so in some ways it's coming for us. I mean, it is. It's, I remember the moment. For me, it was thrash metal. I was like, really? You listen to that? No. And I wasn't like, this is ungodly, but I was like, what? Anybody that's ever said rap music, you mean crap music? And you're your pastor. Yeah, it's a part of it is their life stage. The older we get, the more set in our ways we become, and the harder it is for any of us to change and transition. It's why, when they say college students change their major multiple times, because they're trying to figure themselves out. Hopefully by the time you're 40, whether you like it or not, you've done some self-reflection and determined who you are. So how do you bridge the gap with the pastor? I wish I knew. I wish I knew how to change a pastor. I'm still trying to figure out how to change my wife.
Change the pastor faster.
Yeah, I can change the pastor faster. I like the alliteration too. I'm sorry. I wish I had a good answer. Here's the best illustration I can give you. Is there's a control tower at every airport, and the control tower can tell the airplane to go up or down. And when it tells the airplane to go up and down, it's an adjustment of its altitude. But every plane has a relationship with the tower. And so if the tower says, okay, you need to move this direction southwest, or you need to go, a little bit east, it's saying adjust your attitude. And so attitude is the relationship between the moving object and the immovable object. So what does it come to? I think sometimes with the pastor it goes back to Paul saying to the believing spouse, hey, if he's willing to live with you, stay. Okay? If he's willing to live with you, don't divorce him. Husbands, don't divorce your unbelieving spouse, because hopefully there will be salvation that comes. So look at it as an opportunity to bridge that. And Wes, I saw your hand up. I'll have these young students that have no children, and they'll go, parents look at me and they say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't have a teenager. The best response is to go, you're right, I don't. Okay? And so it's like a human video. Watch this. You go, you're right, I don't have children. I'm not you. But you know what? I'm not a teenager either. No, don't do that part. It's an awkward pause there, But you're right. I'm not you, but I'm not them either. So take me for who I am. A bridge, okay. It's like that, and that's what we are. You're absolutely right. I'm not them. Or I'm not you, but I'm not them. But I have a voice, and I have an entry point into their lives. So the question is, will you allow me an entry into your life to communicate with you about adolescent culture? So the same thing goes with our pastor. Hopefully your pastor's heart is to reach people, regardless of age. And if that's true, then say, Pastor, I can help you to understand these. What questions do you have about the culture? Is there something that you've seen on TV that, what generation lives in the most fear? You know this? What age group? Senior citizens. Okay? Where do senior citizens get their information about teenagers? The news, from media. So they think they're all out there having sex, doing drugs, right? Ready to knock over little old ladies every chance they get. And we know. The other day I went to my son's junior high, and I couldn't tell you how many kids opened the door for me. I was like, what is this? There's some old people that need to see that not every student is a hooligan. Okay? Because not all of them like British soccer. So, what were you going to say?
I was going to, if you don't mind, can I comment on?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm listening.
I worked for a pastor that was, he was traditional, but he wasn't. It was kind of weird. He was stuck in his youth pastor's days, which he wanted me to youth pastor the way he used to, and which doesn't work in this generation.
Yeah.
And one thing that I took from Southwestern and when I went to school there was you got to be called to your senior pastor before the community. Mm-hmm. And I earned the right to be me in ministry by being called to my senior pastor. Mm-hmm. I may not have agreed with everything he represented, but I was called to him, so I was okay with it. And I was going to make him look the best that he could be in his calling. Yeah. And it earned the right for me to not have to wear a suit up on the stage. It earned the right for me to start wearing jeans on Sunday nights.
Whoa. Hey, Ichabod.
And so it earned the right for the youth group once a month to have service on a Sunday night for the adults. And those were the things, but it took time to earn the right. And part of it was, I think the senior pastor just had to know that through thick and thin, I have somebody on my side. Yeah. And so I will be on his side. And that paved a huge road to kind of leaning more towards today.
If you think about it, a lot of pastors, what happens is they really do care about the souls of the students. But they don't know how to relate to them.
Yeah.
And so in that way, they're hiring you as a missionary. And so if you can talk with one of the things we did is we always invited our pastor. We said, once a year, we want you to come preach to the youth group. Come talk to them. And in our case, we had quite a few that came to youth that did not come to Sunday service because their families weren't connected to the church. And, so those are one thing. It's like, come see what we're doing. Come see what's going on. Another thing was, if you're going to be a missionary, you've got to learn the language of the people you're trying to reach. So if you're trying to reach your pastor, trying to bridge that gap, I found my pastor, he wanted teenagers to show up at church work day. And so I used to tell some of my guys, I'd just take them aside and say, listen, I really need you to show up at church work day. Can you do that for me? Can you come and dig ditches and work alongside the men at the church? Now, they thought they were doing me a favor, which they were. I was doing them a favor by connecting them with adult men in the church. So I think that's the thing, is learning what's the pastor's language. How's the pastor going to know that you care and the students care? And I think then he'll begin to reciprocate. But yeah, institutions move slowly, pastors move slowly, old people move slowly. That's a whole other issue. So yeah.
Can I change the subject, Pastor Brandon?
Yeah, do whatever you want. Yeah.
And this is more on the completely practical side.
Okay.
Yesterday, the workshop on youth ministry business style was
yeah.
I loved it. I got a ton out of it. One of the areas that I feel like we really need to work on is just pulling off a good show. Can I have some practical advice on doing that when we don't have our own space? We're volunteers, so it's all on our own time. How do you
get the show? Figure out what your students want. What do your students want? Another big thing is getting them involved. Jay Mooney, our National Youth Director, has really emphasized, let's move away from youth ministry to youth in ministry. So if you're volunteering, congratulations, they're volunteering. Anybody part of a church plant? Any church plant people? Okay. All right. The deal is, church plants are really cool. The most of the salvation, new growth, new faith growth comes from church plants. Because the older a church gets, the more discipleship or inward they become. But new churches, if you show up for a new church, all right, we've got a job for you. Everybody that comes, you can't sit on your hands at a church plant. Everybody on deck for everything, which brings a vitality to the church. It brings an interest, and plus you want the church to grow, so there's a little less for you to do. Okay, so the idea is there are no spectators in church planting. No spectators. And I think the same thing happens if you're a volunteer youth pastor. There are no spectators in the youth ministry. And so everybody's finding something to do. But once again, the mistake, I think the mistake we make is that the show depends on us. But we're seeing students that are making their own YouTube videos. Honestly, out of all my youth ministry skills, I don't know video editing at all. I don't know Photoshop at all because I don't need to. It's just not. It's not something I have to do. Why? Because I have students that can do it so much better than I can. So that aspect of the show, games. If you guys are doing icebreakers games, there's no reason you have to do it. There's so many resources out there, and if you've ever played a game with students and they were like, "This is lame," right? And our frustration goes, "Well, why don't you do it?" But discipleship says, "Hey, you guys should do this. If you think it's lame, you guys should do this." Even in the book of Acts, they found this out. It's like, hey, we're apostles, and we're supposed to be praying and paying attention to God's word, right? And we've got this emergency that we have to take care of waiting tables. This is ridiculous. We shouldn't be doing this. And so they find the deacons. So in your case, your students are your deacons. We put the show on them, the responsibility on them. But once again, it's like, what do they want? Southwestern, we are just down the road from the Oaks Fellowship, which in our area, if you say the Oaks Fellowship, that's massive. They've got a youth group, well, it's sometimes hitting 1,000. Okay? And one of my students, she's a single female youth pastor in Waxahachie, literally 10 minutes down the road from this massive church. She's got a youth group, 50 or so. And I said, Amy, what's it like youth pastoring in the shadow of the Oaks and Seven? And she goes, it's not hard. I was like, really? I said, aren't you worried about losing your kids? She goes, oh no, every single one of my kids has been to Seven before. They've all been to the big youth group, but they're here because they like this better. All right, now here, that's our mistake. We're like, what? What? You could have steak, and they're coming for cheeseburgers? That doesn't make sense. But here's our mistake. We think that's the steak. They want this. That's their preference. You know, I don't know about you, but I don't like gourmet food. I would much rather have Chick-fil-A. I don't need escargot and caviar. Give me meat and potatoes. You know? So once again, what do the students that are with you, what do they really want from you? And if they want a small group discussion, give them a small group discussion, which is it takes all the pressure off you because it's fluid with them. Do they want really big worship? Or are they okay having that at Fine Arts and having that at youth convention and camps and stuff? You know, so just figure out, what do these guys want? What do they need to make it as disciples in their school? Did that help? You guys, any advice? Because I know some of you have been in the same situation. Yeah?
There was one time that I wanted to move our youth group from the sanctuary to the gym, and once we moved to the gym, after a couple weeks, the kids were like, you know, we missed the sanctuary. And I was like, what? We could do a whole lot more out in the gym and more edgy, and no, we missed the sanctuary. And I realized, you know, the flashy stuff, the games, the icebreakers, it just got to a point where the kids just want to worship in the Word. And so we stripped it down to just worship in the Word and altar.
Yeah.
And made sure that we left room for the altar. And, you know, the youth group grew slower than before.
Yeah.
But they grew faster spiritually than before.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of it was finally realizing, man, it's not about having to have the lights, at least for my area that I was youth pastor.
Yeah.
And the kids were just hungry for the basics, worship and word.
It really is true. I mentioned that phrase, cultural exegesis, the other day. I have, as one of the class projects, I have my students do cultural surveys. And just asking students, you know, what do you have a cell phone? What do you use it for? Who pays for it? What movies do you like? What TV shows, what music do you listen to? Because if all my students are listening to rap and hip hop, why am I playing Hillsong on Wednesday night? You know, when they walk in, why am I trying to shove Crystal Myers down their throat? You know? If that's not what they want, if it's not what they like, who gets to define what is culturally right? Who gets to define what model is the best for you? Your students do. Leonard Sweet had a quote. He said, talking about youth culture is like talking about the weather. You know? Now you guys up here, it's like rain or more rain. You know? In Texas we have a phrase. Well, you know how you go to some states and the phrase is, hey, if you don't like the weather,
wait 5 minutes.
Wait 5 minutes. So yeah, in Texas, their phrase is, if you don't like the weather, why don't you go back to where you came from? Okay. They're Texans. Okay. Yeah, there are all sorts of Texas jokes, but the other one that I hear all the time is, you never ask a man where he's from. If he's from Texas, he'll tell you, and if he's not, well, you don't want to embarrass him. You hear that one? It's not a good one. So, I'm not a Texan, by the way. I just want you to know that. Oh yeah. So trying to figure out, what do your students listen to? What do they want? It's the idea. You remember back in the early days of missions, they'd go overseas and they'd make the women put on shirts and the men wear white shirts and ties, right? Because the goal was to go into all the world and make them white Anglo-Saxons, right? That was missions work. Is your missions work to turn everybody into white suburban kids? Is that what Jesus looks like? Like a white suburban kid? You know, I've got one of my students, he's from inner city Houston. Okay? Inner city Houston, that's code. All right? That's code for, do you have a gun? Okay? Inner city Houston is not a good place. Well, Eric, he's Hispanic, and his goal is he wants to develop a hip-hop church in downtown Houston. He can absolutely do it. He speaks that language. He's missional. I can't tell him, no, not hip-hop, Amy Grant. You know, it's going to be Michael W. Smith. That's how you're going to win people to Jesus. So Eric knows his demographic, knows his group, knows what they want. In the same way, I can't tell you how to do ministry in the western part of the state versus the eastern part of the state. I can't even tell you the difference between northern part of Portland and the southern part of Portland. I mean, it could be radically different. The way Joe's doing things, Joe Franco, probably should be different than the way you guys are going to do it. And the most important thing is what I'm doing biblical? Is what I'm doing connecting students to Christ? Okay? That's the ultimate goal. Our ultimate purpose is how do we get students from not knowing who Jesus is to becoming a servant, a follower of Christ? That's it. Everything else to me is negotiable. If that's hip-hop, if that's rap, as long as it's not immoral, I'm okay. So one time in class I was joking. I'm like, yeah, so like you wouldn't, open a Hooters for Jesus. And this one girl's like, woo! And I was like, calm down, it's not a job fair. That one really happened. I was like, wow. So, as long as it's not immoral, as long as it doesn't contradict biblical principles, I feel like, hey, if I'm going to reach a student, I'm going to reach a student. I always feel weird at the end of a question because I don't know if I've answered anything. I just enjoy conversations. Anybody else? Yeah.
Flying solo with 15 students, and the majority of them are middle schoolers. During the show, what's advice for discipline? Because I can't just shut it down for one or two students that are getting out of hand.
Okay, I am a hypocrite. I'm going to tell you I'm a hypocrite. I teach junior high Sunday school. So tomorrow morning, around the lessons already, I have 30 to 40 junior hires by myself in one room. Okay. One time I walked out on them. I was beyond ticked. Okay, you know how when you spell ticked differently, you start with a P? Okay? That's... I mean, literally, I was just like, I shut it down, right? But it worked. They were shell-shocked. I came in the next week. They're like, we didn't think you were coming back. And I said, I'll always be back, but you can't treat me like that. So part of it, I mentioned yesterday that we have rules for our junior high ministry, the SAFE. Some of the things with discipline is avoid the shut up or be quiet. Like when we were saying be quiet, why be quiet? And what's the purpose behind being quiet? And so far as it wasn't be quiet, it's listen. All right? Well, you can't listen and talk. Right? So instead of saying shut up, be quiet, why? Because I want you quiet. It's no, hey guys, not everybody can hear when you guys are talking. Or like even, this happens in college, taking prayer requests. Somebody's getting a prayer request and these people over here are talking. Well, it's disrespectful. And so it's more like, hey guys, you're going to want to hear this. Or, hey, this is really important. Or, guys, I can't hear what their response is. I wish I could tell you how it was easy. It's not. Junior high ministry is crazy. It is. It is. But you can't touch them. And they know it. They know you can't physically harm them or touch them. And that's the only, and I'm telling you, the only recourse I have is that I don't get paid by my church to be there. And I'm a parent, and my son is in that classroom. And so I don't have a problem talking to them like I would my son and just saying, listen, okay, here's the thing. All right. As pastors, God has called us to feed His sheep, not eat their crap.
That's good.
All right? one of the most liberating things I ever heard the pastor that's of our church now say is, from the pulpit, this is a church of like 3,000, he said, I don't work for you. How liberating. I was just like, yes. Because as soon as you work for the parents of those junior hires, you have to do what the parents say. But when we are a bondservant of Jesus Christ, we do what he says, and I'm going to do what's best. And if mom and dad don't agree with it, well, you know what? They don't hold my eternal soul. They hold my momentary paycheck. And so, am I a lobbyist? Am I a politician? Am I saying things because I'm getting paid to say them? Because if so, you're a biblical whore. Right? I'm sorry, I'm being real. But I just thought the children's ministry people aren't in here. You know, we can say things. So, can I say a joke and you guys won't get offended? Do you guys have the girls that wear the sweatpants with things like Cheer and Vixen? I swear, it was disgusting. I was in the mall the other day, Wes, and this one girl, it said ho, and I was like, what? And then I realized she had a wedgie. It said, hello, I'm from Ohio. Get it? Hello, I'm from Ohio. That's disgusting. So, you're gonna say something about this one.
Just to offer him advice, I know in our youth group we were having some trouble with the same thing, and we got all these young, like 6th and 7th graders when school year began, and they aren't used to the situation and stuff. And even because then we also have our like seniors in high school, and they're like, these kids are driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And kids are like checking out right and left because younger ones. And so we finally sat them down one day, and we just had a serious talk about respect. We're like, what bugs you at school about how you're treated by your friends? Mm-hmm. Cutting comments to you, people are sarcastic, they make fun of you. How does it make you feel when someone talks over you? And we invited a kid up, and I was like, dude, tell me about your date. And I kept talking over him. And everyone started laughing, and I was like, how does that make you feel when that happens? And I was like, this is our family, this is our body. And when that happens here, this is no longer a safe place for us to come together and be family and body. We don't want to look like everyone else. This should be the one place you come, that you're respected, and I'm going to give you all my respect, and you give me your respect. Because we're family.
Yeah.
And that, like, hit them like that. And I don't know, we just talked with our pastor before and prayed, and then that's been huge. And when in moments, all I just say, like, guys, are we respecting each other, this family? And they're like, no. And then it clicked for them.
Yeah.
They know they're ridiculed and tormented at school. You know what I mean? They face it. They know how it feels. So.
Another two things. There's a book called When Church Kids Go Bad by Les Christie, and the whole book is on how to discipline in the church. Also, talk to the public school teachers. You know, they are trained in classroom management. Find books on classroom management, and they'll tell you the little secrets, things to do. Like when I'm teaching at college, if this kid back here is sleeping, what I'll do is I'll go, hey, I need everybody to wake up. All right? Because if you discipline one, you've disciplined all. But if you embarrass one, you embarrass one. So when you embarrass one, you lose one. So it's easier. I mean, it's like if I said, Kyle, I need you to sit up. Okay, what happens? Everybody kind of sits up. Just unconsciously, it's like, oh, well, you know, it's like when you see a police officer. It doesn't even matter how fast you're going, you slow down. You know, it's just there's something about that discipline, and so instead of having to discipline the whole group, I'll just say, hey guys, I need everybody. Also, I found with my junior hires, a lot of times if I'll go, give me 5 minutes. Can you give me 5 minutes? It's like they can discipline themselves in short spurts. When you're speaking to them, you usually get about 1 minute of attention per 1 year of age. So a 12-year-old can pay attention for about 12 minutes. All right. I like to compare this to basketball. How many seconds in NBA, how many seconds do you get to shoot? So if you've got the ball, your team has the ball, you have how many seconds on the shot clock? 24 in the NBA. Okay. Let's say you shoot and you hit the rim. How many seconds do you have now? You have 24. Because the way basketball works is, in the NBA, you get 24 seconds to shoot. If you shoot and you miss, the clock keeps going. even if you get the rebound. But if you shoot, hit the rim, and get the rebound, the clock resets. Think about that with illustrations. If I talk to you for 5 minutes, if I talk to junior hires for 5 minutes, and then I stop and go, hey, let me show you a video clip, I hit the rim. I reset their attention clock. I talk for another 5 minutes, and I go, all right, hey, I need a volunteer. Somebody come up here. So as you illustrate, as you do activity, I remember a long time ago, Pee-wee's Playhouse. Remember Pee-wee's Playhouse? Yeah. Okay. All right. I used to really like Pee-wee's Playhouse, and I remember watching Pee-wee's Playhouse and thinking, if I was ever a children's pastor, that would be my kids' church. And I showed my children Pee-wee's Playhouse a few years ago, and it holds up. And the reason it holds up is because it was so before its time that everybody else is caught up. He was ADD before there was ADD, you know? He was hyper before that was a movement. So I think that's part of it, is thinking through your message and saying, am I just preaching to them, or am I giving them opportunities to interact? Am I talking with them? There's also a book called Middle School Ministry Made Simple by Kurt Johnston. And I really like that one. It's one of the textbooks I use for class. I'm pretty sure that other one's When Church Kids Go Bad by Les Christie. But that's a good one on discipline. I'm trying to think of anything else. Anybody else any suggestions? Or yeah.
Do you think the attention spans are getting shorter with our culture and video games?
Part of me wonders if it's that it's getting shorter or it's getting divided. They have, and there's a technical term for it, but we talk about multitasking, but it goes beyond multitasking. Look at an old newscast would be one person sitting in front of a static board. But now you turn on Fox News or CNN or ESPN, stuff scrolling, things are on the side, there's video behind them, the announcer. Watch a football game, same thing. You've got multiple scores, you've got downs, you've got all that information, plus you can log on to NFL.com or Fox.com and your interactive polls and everything like that. And so how does that make its way into the youth ministry? They come in and we tell them, sit down, shut up. Have you guys seen polleverywhere.com? Polleverywhere.com. It's free for groups of 30 or less, but you create PowerPoint slides, and as long as you're connected to the internet, you could have your students texting in and doing polls and stuff like that. Also, this is a cool thing. Have you guys seen Google Voice? Have you messed with Google Voice at all? All right. Watch this. My cell phone number is 724-GARLAND. Okay, 724 Garland. If you want, you could also do it Rag Garland. So if you want to make fun of me, Rag Garland. But 724 Garland. The cool thing with Google Voice is you sign up and it gives you a phone number that will always be with you. So 724 Garland, if you call 724 Garland, it'll actually ring my cell phone number. But I could set it to ring 6 phone numbers all at the same time. Whichever one picks up, it hangs up all the others. The other day, I was in class, a student called 724 Garland, leaves me a voicemail. It translates the voicemail into text. And so I looked down, I could read his whole voicemail just as a text message. Okay? Had the ability that when they call 724 Garland, you say, hi, this is JR calling. So it rings, and I pick up, and it goes, JR is calling. What do you want to do? Do you want to answer it? Do you want to send it to voicemail, or do you want to listen to JR leave a voicemail? So I can listen to you live, leaving a voicemail, and then interrupt. So I go, oh, hey, I need to take this. And then I can just cut into the middle while you're leaving a voicemail. Hey, JR, what's up? What can I help you with? Something like that. But same with text messaging. You just send a text message to 724 Garland. And so that would be a cool way. The reason I mention that is if you don't want students texting you all the time, maybe you buy a track phone. And if you're one of the prepaid phones, and so you're doing a poll everywhere, poll everywhere, you don't need a cell phone to do that. That's that company. So as long as your group is 30 or less, so you can get opinions. How many can go to youth convention? Where do you want to go to eat tonight? Wendy's or Arby's? You know, you could do games that way, but it'll create a PowerPoint slide, and it's free. It's great. We have done it at Southwestern, where a speaker came in and he had a license, so he could have, you know, almost 1,000 people doing it and asking questions, doctrinal questions. So here we are sitting in Southwestern Chapel. How many believe in the initial physical evidence of the Holy Spirit? Okay? And so the stats start coming up, and they come up in live time. It'll show you how many people are responding, and your bars will move back and forth. You know? So it's really cool. You can see these. Here's the other great thing. You could put the slide up and running in your office, and then put a static slide up in the youth room. You say, "Hey guys, I want to do some research. You know, we're thinking about doing a series on sexting. We're thinking about doing a series on sexuality or something, or drugs. And so I just want to ask you a question. If you've ever done this, send a text here, and it won't show live there. Where will it show live? In your office. So after service, you go back to your office, you go home. It doesn't matter where you are, you know. You go home, and you pull up your computer, and you can see the live stats. When you were in youth service, they were responding, and it was showing up on your computer. And now you have some basic research information, what kind of activities you want to do. So I think with junior hires, yeah, you've got to have them involved. Do they have short attention spans? They may be getting shorter, but I think the thing is they're having more the ability to divide things up, to do more than one thing at a time. We tell them, come to church and sit down, shut up. And we need to get them involved in the process, get them up off their feet, active. So that was a long response.
That's good.
Sorry. What time is it? Okay, I need to let you go. Okay. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the 2009 Fusion Podcast. For more information on the Oregon Ministry Network and our events, please visit our website at oregonag.org.